A lot has been made over the fact that many people are disenfranchised with Disney theme parks and some of their recent policy changes, along with price increases and other measures that a lot of the people that have gone to the parks for a long time have not liked. But it's not often, at least historically speaking, that you are able to really see exactly why some people no longer buy a product or vacation in the same places that they used to. But with social media now, we can kind of see this in real time, and I've been surprised to see lately there's been a lot of articles being written in the mainstream media and also just bigger websites talking about this very fact. And I found an article that was originally on Cinema Blend, but was reposted over here on Yahoo Life, that are sharing some of the reasons why they no longer are going to the Disney parks. So I figured let's read through this article, get some thoughts on it, and go from there. So, hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic. And the title of this article is Former Disney World fans are sharing the reasons they bailed on the theme parks as new rules and hidden costs came in. It says the one constant is change at Disney parks. And while that usually means that there will always be new attractions at Disney World, even if that often means replacing old attractions, it also means that policies and prices are also always changing at Disney World. Things have gotten really expensive in the parks in recent years, and if one viral tweet is to be believed, some people may finally have had enough. A recent Twitter thread has gone viral, which laments not only the increasing costs of the parks, but the fact that many services that used to be offered have also disappeared. This means that people are now paying even higher prices, but getting less than they used to for the money. It's suggested that this ultimately will, or perhaps already has, resulted in people being done with Disney World. And we can go see this thread over here on Twitter. This is by Damon Vinci. And he starts it off by saying, okay, here's my issue with Disney as of late. Disney was a leader in the theme park space. Literally nobody did it better. The food was better. The cast members were better. The themes were better. The inclusions and perks were better. It was more expensive than other places, but you got so much better quality than other places. You really felt like there was value. Magical Express was amazing. They picked up your bags and delivered them to your room. So your vacation started when you left the house. Uh, I, I've said for a long time, and I know some people disagree with me, and I'm not saying it's the only reason, but I think taking away the Magical Express is one of the biggest mistakes that Disney made. When we lived in Missouri, we used Magical Express all the time, and so it was cool whenever they also used to give you free Magic Bands. So you would get your Magic Bands early. You would set up your fast passes before you left for your trip, and then when you landed at the airport, I mean, as soon as you're in MCO, it's like your trip began because you would go downstairs and there is Magical Express, the cast members waiting for you, and it was like your trip had just started. You didn't have like they whisked you away to your resort, and I feel like that is a perk or a feeling that some people will have going on these vacations that is kind of difficult to put a price tag on because as Disney does now with spreadsheet management, but I don't know where you would put that because it's more of a feeling than just a specific number allotted to people, at least in my opinion. He goes on to say you could prepay for meals so you weren't flipping out your wallet and feeling like you were being nickel and dimed every step of the way. Magic bands and fast passes were included in your stay. Cast members would make magic happen for you at any point of your stay. Agreed. Now the base entry to get in is crazy. 200 plus a night to stay at All Stars. It it can be. It depends on when you go. You can still find All Stars in the $100 range, but it depending upon, hotels are basically priced upon demand. So some nights I have seen All Stars in the $200 range, which is wild because it's essentially, I'm not going to say it's a Motel 6, but it's a very simple hotel just with some Disney theming. $120 plus for a day in the park, $150 to attend a party, $50 for a dinner. Then add lightning lanes, and you're talking anywhere from $25 to $40 per person per day, plus single pass for another $10 to $30. The lack of pricing transparency at Disney World is maddening. Multi pass could be $20, it could be $40. You literally don't know how much until the day you buy it, which is during your trip or just before. So, how do you plan for that? It's a very valid point, and I think that's one thing that I will say. For instance, like the Halloween parties and the Christmas parties, the pricing on those has gotten wild. Um, I remember going to those. It wasn't that long ago. I think 2019. They were under $100 if you had your AP discount. You're talking, you know, in the 70 ranges, and now it's based upon the closer you get to say Halloween or Christmas. I mean, some of these nights, these parties are getting up to almost $200 a person. So to go to one of these parties, if you're a family of four, it'd be like $1,000. that, yeah, I mean, considering again, it wasn't that long ago, a family of four could go for $200 to $300 in that range. So, and that was just, again, that was like around 2019 time period. For an average family of four, you're talking about anywhere from $100 to $200 in extra expenses per day. The virtual queue is also an issue. You take people who would otherwise be in line for a ride and put them into the rest of the park, which elevates wait times elsewhere. This was a major issue at Disney's Hollywood Studios with Rise of the Resistance. That queue needed to absorb those guests so that the waits for Slinky Dog and such weren't at 120 minutes. In the end, we are getting a far worse experience and paying far more. They are losing customers left and right. The legacy is being tarnished, and while they will ride the coattails of their brand for a while, it is wearing out. Guests who made repeated trips are no longer doing that. They are telling their friends how awful the experience was, and new guests will be one and done. And he says, end. He brings up a lot of valid points, and I think, and I made the point as well, when you have people that have gone to the parks for a while, they are the ones that notice these things the most, because it wasn't that long ago. I mean, 2019, you can make an argument, was almost like the peak time period in terms of popularity and, going to Disney World and people, enjoying the parks. You still had Fast Pass Plus, you still had Magical Express, you still had a lot of the elements that made it such a unique experience. And then after COVID, things completely changed. And then, everything, that's when the nickel and diming really started. And I think seeing that change happen so quickly is something that, if you've been going for a while, you notice it. And new people coming into it, they don't have a reference point. We have noticed a lot of people that used to go all the time, that either aren't going at all or aren't going as much. And a lot of it is the pricing. A lot of people have been priced out completely. A lot of it's just too complicated. And again, it's changed so much to where going on a vacation to Disney World has become a job in and of itself. It's not really a vacation. So that was the initial post that kind of got this going. And then there was more people that chimed in as well. So a lot of people have responded to the initial post, adding that they also have become very frustrated with visiting Disney World. The recent change that transformed Genie Plus into Lightning Lane MultiPass has upset some, as people who just figured out how to manage the old system have to deal with learning a new system. They say a Disney vacation is a full-time job. Agreed. This is my first time being the adult and having to plan the trip myself. They changed the rules on the Lightning Lane after I booked my vacation, and I studied everything I needed to know about the previous rules. I can say we have a podcast that has, we talk about the best tips and reviews and things about in the parks. Like on this channel, we cover things around the news and things like this revolving around the theme parks, more or less. On that show, we talk about specific tips and reviews and things to get the most out of your trips. But on that show, we've even talked about how going on a Disney vacation, at the very least, it's like getting a part-time job. You have to do a lot of research if you want to get the most out of the money you're spending. And then when you're on your vacation, it legitimately is a full-time job. I mean, it's with the Genie Plus system, you're on your phone from 7 a.m. As long as you're in the parks, you are on your phone and you're constantly trying to get reservations. And it's not an easy system for those who aren't used to it to learn. And I think this is one reason why they changed it. But again, they're changing it to a system much like what they've changed it to is much like the system that used to be free, except now they're charging you for it. But it's the second time they're changing the system in less than 5 years. So I could see it, especially if you're not used to, you just learn one system. That's a lot to try and figure out. Somebody else says, the end of the Disney Magical Express is one item specified by many as a tough loss. The free transportation system to Walt Disney World going away now means guests have an added cost, as they must pay some amount to get to the resort in some way before they even get into the parks. There's a feeling by many that over the last few years, too much has changed and a tipping point has been passed. And this person says, I had visited every year since 1973. My dad took us. When I had my own kids, we went 2 to 3 times a year staying on site. Moved to Florida in 2007, had premium AP and visited frequently. Noticeable changes happened around 2017. Stopped going completely for reasons you state. Sad, really. When you're talking about a lot of the things that, again, I am very much plugged into this realm because like this guy's story is one that we've heard from a lot of people. It's not one thing. It's a lot of times it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. It'll be a lot of these changes and people, for the most part say, okay. And then all of a sudden it's one thing and it's like, that's the thing that was too much. It's not a singular thing. It's just this culmination of a lot of little things eventually become like the weight of it. And people are just like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. There's other places to go. There's other destinations. Obviously you have Universal Studios with Epic Universe coming up. You have regional theme parks that have been growing in popularity that are much cheaper and offer a good experience. Disney World was up here, the regional parks were down here. That gap is closing. I mean, the regional parks are doing a much better job of things, and competing. I think ultimately will be another source of major competition for Disney in the future. It says many of those responding have actively stopped going to Disney World or stopped going as much. Several who claim to have had an annual pass say they've stopped paying it because it's just not worth it to them anymore. While Disney World has done a few things recently to add value to the parks, it's not enough for everybody. This person goes on to say, we didn't renew our APs, which we had for years all of you because of all you mentioned. Plus, these are all people responding to that initial thread that we read, by the way. Because all of you mentioned, plus some others, it made me very sad. I even sent an email explaining all the reasons, though I know they don't care. I did it with the hope it would open their eyes because I love Disney, but it didn't. And that's the other thing, too, from a brand standpoint, is a lot of people feel like that Disney doesn't care and they're not listening. And I'm not going to make the argument that multinational corporations care, any of them. I'm not going to make that argument. I'm not going to make the argument that Universal, on a level of I guess like they care individually about every single person. But I will say, at least from my perspective and my experiences, I do feel like Universal does listen to their guests and their customers more, in terms of like surveys, and just in general, they feel much more responsive to the guest experience, which I do appreciate. Now, they don't do everything that I want them to do all the time, and and they're not perfect. They have a lot of areas that they need to improve upon as well. But I do get the sense that they are trying. And I think that's something that a lot of people can appreciate about a company. Even if you don't agree with everything they do, at least the effort of trying and listening does go a long way. They go on to say another very unpopular recent change was to the way that Disney World handled its disability access service. Getting DAS access for guests who have difficulty waiting in lines has changed significantly, requiring a lot more work. And it is a far more limited as far as who qualifies for access. While there has been reportedly been significant abuse of the DAS system, that doesn't matter to those who truly need it. Some responding. And this person says, for me, it's all this plus the changes in DAS. Disney used to be a place where my son could go and just be a kid. Now Universal, Cedar Point, and Six Flags are more accessible. So we don't have any personal experience with DAS. We've never used it, but again, having the podcast and a lot of people that do use it, this is a major point for a lot of people. And the way in which they've changed this system, I can say from the outside looking in, doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of there's a lot of people that you would just be like, oh yeah, that person, like they would qualify for that. They no longer are. And I do understand from a business standpoint of people abusing the DAS system. But the thing with that is Disney knew about that for a long time and let it slide. And I don't know what the breaking point for that was. I don't know why they all of a sudden decided to do this. And I kind of made the analogy too, was it was almost like a substitute teacher that comes in and they were too soft in the beginning. And the only way they felt like they could win back the class or, control this issue was to go super strict. And I feel like this is the way they went. And there are some people that have said it is loosening up since this initial, people really clamping down on this. But all in all I've heard from people is a lot of people aren't happy with the system. But again, I don't have any firsthand information with this. So I can't really accurately, talk about it other than what other people have told us. And you look at too, Universal had implemented a system before Disney did. And a lot of people really didn't like the one Universal did. But since Disney has made their changes, a lot of people have talked about how they like Universal's system better, as Universal completely uses a third party to handle the whole thing. Whereas Disney's sort of doing this hybrid thing where they're letting cast members decide it, but they're consulting with this other company. So it seems much more complicated with Disney, whereas Universal's, I think, was looked at as strict, but I feel like there is a very much people know what to expect from it at this point. But again, we don't use it and haven't used it, so I can't really speak to it. And they go on here to say, to finish up, one of the issues is that many people plan Disney World vacations months or years in advance, which means that if there's a significant change to attendance due to these issues, it will likely be quite a while before Disney World realizes the problem. Any intended fixes will then take just as long to have an impact. And with Universal Orlando Resort getting ready to open Epic Universe next year, there's a potentially exciting reason for theme park fans to go somewhere other than Disney World. Many feel that Disney hasn't done enough to compete, but it may actually be what the resort has done that could be the real problem. And I agree with the conclusion that the thing about theme parks is, and for the longest time when a lot of these changes were made, people were complaining about it, but the parks were slammed. They were busy. They were selling stuff out. And everyone's saying, well, the parks are busy. You know, there's no issue here. But again, people plan these trips way in advance. And a lot of the people that traveled in 21, 2022, even some in 2023, these were trips that were planned even before COVID hit. So these were trips that were planned when maybe people prepaid them. And again, so much of it changed, and a lot of people just were like, "Well, we already paid for it. Let's go on the trip." And what we had heard, we have a travel partner as well, is a lot of people got on these trips, and then we would get a survey, and they would basically say, like, "I'm not doing that again. Like, I don't feel like I got my money's worth." And this is where the issue in lies: is that Disney, a lot of its success did rely on the fact that people went, they fell in love with the park, they loved going, and they said, "I want to go back." And now you have more of a situation where a lot of people are going. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people are going, and they're saying this was too much. It was too expensive. I just didn't enjoy myself. I'm not. I don't know if we're going to come back, or we're definitely not coming back. We're going to go try somewhere else. And I think this is a cumulative effect that we look at this summer, and the park attendance is down for a multitude of reasons. But I don't think it's merely because of, say, the economy. I think some of it is some of the Disney World fans, I think, are just kind of tapping out, and we've heard people say that as well, that it's too expensive, it's too complicated, and maybe they are going, some people are going over to Universal and liking that, or maybe some of these regional parks. So if Disney decided today that it wants to change, I mean, this, you're talking about, it's almost like a giant cruise ship turning around. It's going to take a lot of effort, energy, and time to turn this around. And I don't, maybe them changing the Genie Plus system to this new Lightning Lane system is sort of them. They are responding in some way to guest feedback with that. Now, obviously, if they were really responding completely to that, they would bring back Fast Pass Plus. But as of right now, Genie Plus just makes too much money. Now there's an argument to be made that if they didn't charge for Genie Plus, maybe people would spend more money in the parks on food and merchandise and other things like that. But as of right now, they have a line on a stat sheet that tells them how much Genie Plus is bringing in, or how much Lightning Lane is bringing in. And under current leadership, I just don't see them letting go of that, or understanding, a lot of times with the managements nowadays, that they like to see a direct ROI, so they can directly see, oh, this ride makes X amount of money, or this one, or whatever it is. So I don't see that being the case. So I suppose on some level they are responding, but a lot of times with Disney, they're very reactive, and they're not really looking toward the future as much. Now, it'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out as Epic Universe becomes even closer to opening, and what that looks like, especially next summer. That's going to do it for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture news around here. And let us know in the comments what you think about this article, and do you agree with any of the points these people brought up, or do you disagree? So until next time, we will see you in the parks.